So it is important because in interviews many times they ask this question, why routes need to be constants always? Because they need to be initialized. That's the reason they need to be constant. And here we have to write the collection of routes. How to write the collection of routes, I will show you. We will see that. This is just syntax. This is the syntax we are learning, how router is defined actually. So this is automatically added. If you are not adding, then you have to manually write them. Now one more is after configuring the routes, that means here configured the routes. Configured. After configuring the routes, so we have to load the routes into route table on application startup. Then that is managed by ng module. That is managed by ng module. ng module is responsible for importing and exporting everything for your application. For application, I want to import and export. What you want to import? So imports, it has to import. So router module dot for route, and it has to load the loads. Actually, this for route I explained you in service. That means what router module will do. Router module purpose is nothing but it is used for loading routes into route table. That means it will collect the routes that you have configured here, constant routes. It will collect the routes and loads the routes into route table for your root application. For the root level application, it will load all the routes into the route table. After loading the routes into route table, then exports will allow to access exports. You have to export router module. Then it will allow to access the routes from anywhere in the application. So router module loads the router table, imports and routes, loads the router routes into router table, and exports router module. It allows you to use the router table across the application. From anywhere we can use the application. This is the basic structure of configuring the routes for your project. So we have to import ng module. This loads the routes table for our application and configures for our application. Creating the route table is managed by using routes and router module. And constant routes, because so they must be initialized. Routes need to be initialized. How routes are initialized? What are the properties required for initializing the routes? We will see that. So we will see several important properties are there. We will see that. Let's create one simple starting point structure for this now. So what we have to do, we want to start here. We will add some components. Let's make sure that we have components which are not already used here. Okay. The home components, right? About and contact. Okay, here I'm just creating one simple option. Okay, let's add some components. I'm adding some components here. So ng generate component. Suppose I'm saying shopping home or shopping home. Okay, skip test equal to true. I'm adding some components here. Shopping home. Okay. Now, few more components we will add here. So another is ng generate component, some electronics. So skip test equal to true. Okay. some electronics is one component. Okay, another component I'm adding here, like footwear. Okay, electronics, footwear, some components we are adding. Yeah, so these are the components. So we have some fashion. Okay, these are the three components, four components we added. So we are generating those components here. Okay, now you need to set up a startup component for our application. Application should start with a component. So we have to start with a specific component, and in that we will design all the UI. Actually, you can see that in our project we have app component by default. This app component, so it is having some logic, so much is there here. This is all already there in your startup. Actually, it is already there in your startup. So this is your app component, which is already there in your startup. Means actually when we first created the application, it is starting it. Now we can create a different one. For example, suppose we need to start with shopping home. We need to start with shopping home. That is our starting component here. And here we designed shopping home. So that is the component to start with. And that is shopping home. That is the component to start with. So that means our application starts with the shopping home component. Okay. So shopping home component, it works fine. Now what we are doing is just simply we have to first add a routing module for our application. Go to app folder. So in the app folder, we need to add a routing module. So you can generate from command. So, or you can simply configure. How do we generate from command? So we can use ng generate module and module name app-routing. That is the module name. So we can generate the module, ng generate module and the module name. And we can actually, one point is when you are generating the module, so usually for every file, a separate folder is created. So we don't want to create any folder. Then what we can do is we can say -- flat equal to true. Flat equal to true, it indicates that a separate folder is not created for it. So it will create only a file. So flat equal to true. We can use this command, or it will generate everything for you. Or you can manually add, because it is just a PS file, TypeScript file. We can directly add also. How do we add? Just go to app folder and add a new file into app folder, app-routing.module.ts. So this is app routing module.ts. I need to configure it. This is app routing module, and we need to create a class